We're live.
We're live.
We're live.
Hello and welcome to Hobby Vomit. I'm Ian and this is
I'm Matt. Hello.
Hello. Okay, so we are now going to be kind of doing our review of Book 3, Chain of Dogs, or rather Part 3 of Deadhouse Gates. So again, this is a series where we go through the individual parts of Deadhouse Gates. We kind of review them. We mostly gush about what we've read. And then at the end of the whole series, we'll kind of have like a non-spoiler and spoiler review of the entire book, kind of give our thoughts and our opinions and sort of overall impression of the book. This is just an opportunity for us to really talk about what we've just read without knowing what comes next, right? So we've read the first 3 parts of this book, but we've not read the final part nor the epilogue. So we can't spoil that, but we're certainly going to be talking about things that happened in this part, and we'll be talking about things that happened in previous parts. So if you've not caught up on Deadhouse Gates, Part 3, Chain of Dogs, this would be your time to go do that. And if you've not watched our earlier videos, this would be a great time to go do that as well. But otherwise, we're going to move forward and assume that you're right there with us. You've recently completed Book 3, or you're coming back to kind of share in this moment with us. Maybe you've read Deadhouse Gates before as well, and you're just curious to see what we think about it. It's been awesome to see comments from people who are doing that. It's just really cool to have you, you veterans, come and join us for this journey. And we're pretty sure, both of us are pretty sure that you're kind of cackling in the background at our lack of ability to predict what's going to happen in the future. But it's been an overall really good journey. So with that, you have been warned as far as spoilers go. But I think we're going to go ahead and kind of start off with our sort of high-level overview of the previous part, and then we're going to jump right in into our discussion. So we've been kind of spending a little bit too much time in the intro. So now I'm just going to kind of stop talking. I'm moving it over to Matt, and we're going to get going.
I forgot we chatted about what we were gonna kind of I don't know, the order we were gonna do things in, and we forgot and a very important thing we need to do before we go over the high level overview, or maybe afterwards, is we need to talk about our predictions and if we were right or wrong.
Yeah. So maybe we want to do the high-level overview of the previous part, and then
we do predictions. Yeah,
predictions?
Let's do that. So let me get to my notes here. All right, so we're keeping it quick, super high level overview. So what happened in part 2 of Deadhouse Gates? So we had Culp, Fellison, and co. escaping Skull Cup, only to get stuck in the warren of a mad mage on a boat. We had Duker catching up with Coltane just in time to have the big battle in which a god is killed. Callum and Apt are heading south and meet up with some stragglers. Fiddler and co. are searching for Tremolor and get caught by some Soul Taken and Deavers, only to be rescued by Icarium and Mappo. So a ton more things happened, but that's just general. If you're just coming in, you're like, what happened last part? That's most of what happened last part. So yeah, let's talk about what predictions we got right and wrong. Mostly wrong, probably. You have to put a little asterisk on one of yours, by the way.
Oh, wait, which one's that?
From your part 1, the god dying.
Yeah.
he gave you the old 1-2, pulled the rug out from under you.
Yeah. It was like, well, God died sort of.
Yeah.
God is currently dying.
Yeah.
I guess.
So do you have them pulled up, or?
I do have some pulled up.
Yeah.
So the main ones we talked about from last time was that we had noted there were some interesting. I noticed an interesting relationship between Hebrock and Carium. Not that we're there yet, although it does feel like we're getting closer to maybe some interaction between them. We noted that the parties are likely to converge on Aaron, which is sort of true. Our first of our parties have arrived. I put more gods will die. I kind of expected this really for part 4. But yeah, certainly that has not happened. In fact, we're kind of seeing the same god getting killed over and over again. As like, it's always like there's just another piece of him, right? And then we put it, so then we also kind of noted like, well, if the Deadhouse Gates allows for travel, we did see at the end of Gardens of the Moon like Rallick go into one, and then we also saw Talk the younger get knocked into a warren. So we were kind of wondering like, okay, are we going to see them again? And we had sort of an interesting twist on that because we did run into another character who we didn't know what happened to, who kind of got lost in the warren. And then Bodden's talent. Pearl.
Oh, wait, Pearl?
Yeah, Pearl's in Gardens of the Moon, pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, okay, I just didn't remember.
They didn't like get lost. We just see them and then we don't see them
Oh,
anymore.
okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fun.
But
Yeah, I didn't remember
mhm.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure Pearl is the one that takes Piran through the Warren to go see Empress. Or yeah, yeah. Pretty sure that's right. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
pretty sure that's
in
Pearl
the very beginning.
in the very beginning. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
I
cool.
could be totally off, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
Okay, nice.
Um, Bon's talent. Although that we did learn what that means,
We
so that's
did,
pretty
yeah.
cool. We
Mm-hmm.
learned that there are in fact talons,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why he has one. And then we put Heberic's hands are going to play a major role. Well, I mean,
I think they did.
they are now a handy little gimmick.
Yeah,
So
I think they did.
they are definitely playing a role. So those are our predictions. There's kind of one thing we didn't take a note of, but we did. You did ask at the end of the last one, which was people dying. And we
Mm-hmm.
were not wrong, but we fell short.
Yeah, I think I said List. I thought List was not gonna
With
make it.
yeah,
I don't.
yeah, and I was like, some of the Marines are gonna die.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
we got
I mean,
all of the Marines died.
yeah. At least we think. Yeah, it was one of those things that like it happened. I was like, wait,
Yeah.
did they really, or is it like they just didn't? We didn't see what really happened, so
Yeah,
maybe
technically it's an
not.
off-screen death, so maybe
Yeah,
not, right? It is an off-screen death. Um, so we don't really know just yet.
you
But
should
yeah,
say
no,
you got it right. That way, when they come back, we can retcon that too.
yeah,
We'll just
yeah, exactly.
get a bunch of
If I
retcon.
say I'm right, it almost guarantees that it's going to be retconned.
Yeah, Steven
So
Erickson's like, oh, I got to modify their
yeah,
copies.
yeah, yeah. When we see the TV show version of this, it'll be other characters wearing the red shirts and not the
Exactly.
Marines. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, so anyway, but there were some really significant deaths in this one that
There were.
I thought was really good. So but yeah, but there is one character I kind of felt like Heberick may
Mm,
die, or I feel like there's something that's gonna happen there. We're not there yet, so I'm still curious about that. But
yeah.
overall, though, yeah,
Overall,
very cool.
we did okay. I
We
mean,
did we
some
did
safe
okay. We
bets,
did
some safe bets,
better.
but
We did better than I ever did with Gardens. So
yeah, I didn't even try in Gardens. I was just like, I'm
yeah.
along for the ride, baby. So, all right. So I think that we also chatted about what we as we round out 10 minutes before doing our part. Uh, what we had done in the past was a high level overview of the current part as well, and I think we've
Mm.
decided we're just gonna, instead of doing a high level overview part, we're gonna talk about all of it anyway. So we're just gonna kind
Yep.
of get into some of these threads and just let the discussion kind of take us where it takes us. And we've got
Yep.
our notes down if we feel like we need to wrap around to something. And yeah, last thing I just wanted to say before we start was I think it's always fun to just general vibes. How did you feel about this part? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you, you know, just general vibes?
Yep. I generally enjoyed this part. Now I don't know if this is maybe just because it's slightly shorter, but it feels like a setup. I mean, it just feels like a setup part. That's like part two with the battle and everything. Like it felt like we had definitely like wrapped things up. It's not quite right. But it did feel like almost like a mid-season finale in a way, whereas
Mm-hmm.
this very much feels like the precursor to the finale,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was kind of generally.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think some really like exciting things happened that I was really hyped about. I will say, and you and I chatted about this a little bit before. There's this reputation that Gardens of the Moon has, or just Malazan in general, which is like it's a difficult series to read. It's maybe a little dense at times, which I would say comparatively to something like a Sanderson, sure, it is a tougher read. It makes you have to be focused, right? Everything's intentional. But on top of that, a lot of people are like, Gardens of the Moon, that's the hard one. Once I got to Deadhouse Gates, it was easy, smooth sailing. And I've found, maybe I'm the exception here, and I think you said that you also are in this boat, but I'm having just as much trouble, and I wouldn't even necessarily call it trouble, but like there's a lot of moving parts in this book and a lot of cascading consequences and threads within threads within threads and callbacks to things that you didn't hear about from 400 pages ago. So I do think there's a lot of confusion I'm having of like especially when it comes to like the Warrens and stuff, like which we'll talk about. But overall, general plot, I'm following no problem. But I do find this one to be. I found myself at times like, what did I just really read, and maybe having to reread some paragraphs here and there. But overall, positive. Still really love it. Just not as easy as I maybe thought it was going to be coming off Gardens.
Yeah. I am, and I know that, like, again, it might be somewhat controversial for some people who are big fans of the series, but I'm even after reading Chain of Dogs, I am still of the opinion that I like Gardens more than I did House Gates. And I'm also still of the opinion that I think Gardens was easier to follow than Deadhouse Gates. Now, to be fair, I mentioned this before, but I'm not as big of a fan of like the sand setting. So that certainly is playing a role into my favoritism for Gardens. Just because, again, if they were like in a lush, fantastic forest, like I would just like it more. That's just me.
No.
But obviously that wouldn't fit for the setting because the world would be crazy. Although it could be a tornado and then it would feel very familiar to me. But there is that. But no, I there are going to be times when there are things that are said where I'm like double take and I will read back just to see if I missed something and I didn't. And I can understand that there are going to be times when Steven Erikson as an author is going to leave things open to us as like a shock factor and to be resolved later. I do get that. But there are definitely several scenes where because of the writing or the setup, it appears confusing or hard to follow. And it's not one of those moments. And I think specifically the times where that's most often is actually in the battle scenes, which again I think is a break with Gardens. I think it's really cool to have these battle scenes. We've now had two, one big one in part 2 and one big one in part 3. I think it's cool to have these kind of battle scenes. I think that they are not a weakness of Erikson, but I think the language needs to be a lot more clear. It either needs to be a vignette, or like a vignette, almost montage, like it was with book 1 with Gardens of the Moon, or it needs to be like cool but in simpler language, with what he's doing with Deadhouse Gates.
Yeah.
And I can explain what I mean a little bit later when we talk about Dooker.
We'll talk about that battle because I think we should compare them. This battle with Dooker compared to even just the one that we had just left off, because I do feel there was a difference between the two. But yeah, we'll get there. But all in all, yeah, positive. I think I have a feeling it's like I think the last part's going to be an absolute banger. Like I think it's just going to, so many things are set up and in place, and I cannot wait to figure out what the hell is going to happen. And I think it's all going to be awesome because it is a lot of like trust the process, right? And I do, I definitely do, until Erikson gives me a reason not to. I'm just going to trust the process. But I wouldn't say as of right now I'm thinking it's like a perfect book or anything. But let's chat about it. Is there a thread that you would like to start with, or a character you'd like to start with, or anything?
Start with Dooker then, because I'm sure there's people probably watching who are like, "Ooh, okay, what are you guys talking about?" So let's start there. So you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what happened with Dooker in this part?
Yeah, a lot happened. So we kind of went from like we ended part 2 on a huge battle with Dooker, and then we go into part 3. I don't think it's the very first thing that happens. It might even be like chapter 2 of this part, but there's only 4 chapters in this part, so it's on the first half of it. We get another big battle, but even before that we get the revelation of Dooker kind of he gets put into this like small crew to go I can't remember exactly what they're doing, but they find out that's where they find the Semp god not dead.
So that was the second chapter, was then go after the they're going after the war leader. Chapter 3 is like the big battle.
Okay.
Or the third chapter, so I think it's like 13. But yeah, no, they want to, like, they're being harassed, like basically by this war leader who is using guerrilla tactics on them, and it's just a thorn in their side, and they know they're going. Well, Coltane, but nobody else knows. But Coltane knows that they're going to be going into a big battle, so he doesn't want these guys like nipping in his heels. So he basically like charges these like Sormo and a few other warlocks like Sorman doesn't actually go, but he basically charges a specialized force of Malazan elite soldiers,
And Duker
who and Duker
for some reason.
for some reason, who are going to be accompanied by three of the Warlock children, and he basically tells them that they need to sneak into the camp at night and assassinate this war leader.
Mm-hmm. Which does end up happening, right?
Yeah, they do get him.
They do get him, but yeah,
wrong person.
There's the revelation at this moment of the god that they thought that they killed has like it's basically like imagine an explosion and one drop just kind of like made it out, and then that drop formed into like a mini version of that god. It's still part of that god. It is still alive, and that god kills one of the warlocks. From what I understand, it's not one of the named ones that we know.
Yeah.
Because at first I thought it was Nether or Nil. I couldn't remember which one. I thought Nether and Nil both went, and one of them died. But it turns out later on we see the others. So it's just a warlock dies, and they just kind of run back. Yep. They're like peace, like I mean they got the knowledge. And then so that's the setup, and then the next day, I think it's the next day, is the Battle of Geller Ridge. Is that what we want to call it? Geller or Jeller or Galore?
Yeah. Well, and we should add that it was implied by Sormo that the creature that they saw who had the piece of the Simp god was actually one of the like raised spirits that the warlocks raised to destroy the god. That some of them may have eaten, like as a part of the devouring the god, eaten a chunk and then taken on the god's powers. So that leaves it open to the fact that there could be who knows how many of these things out there.
It might just be one that we've seen. But so later, and I think it's notable here, right? On the way back to camp, they see some like throwing stars and like daggers that would normally belong to a claw, and Duker just sees these on the way back, and I can't remember if he's like, oh, like he definitely recognizes them and like notices
he's like, there's
them,
a
and
claw,
it's like
he tells Coltane that there's a claw, and Coltane's like, WTF? Yeah.
So I thought that was notable, and then but really that's kind of the last we hear about that for then. But then the next day is the big battle, the Battle of Geller Ridge, and they go into this like big, like dried out lake essentially with a river going through it.
Yep.
That has been, it's. I will say, well, actually, here, do we want to just say which battle did you like more? Just which overall,
I
which
like
one did you
the
like
first
more?
battle more. Yeah.
Okay.
I like the first battle a lot more. The setup for that was I guess I can go more into it in a second, but yeah, I like the first one more.
I liked this one more, personally. But which one did you find? Well, I guess based off of that, I think both of our answers would be the same. Did you find the first battle easier to understand and follow?
Yeah, yes, but also the first one, like we were watching it through Duker, who wasn't actively in the battle for the most part of it. So there was also a lot of pieces to the battle that we really did not need to understand.
Yeah.
Whereas the second one is more demanding. You need to like understand the movement of the forces and
big forces too.
Yeah, and then also buy into. In my opinion, there was a couple of things that Erickson is asking you to buy that are going to be very difficult pills to swallow, especially if you are knowledgeable of like medieval tactics or medieval warfare. And so I can kind of get into that a little bit more. But yeah, so you said the second one. So what was about the second one that you really liked?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I think just it was easier for me to follow. I think with the first battle, because we had so many new factions, there was like 4 different factions surrounding them, but then some of them were doubled up, and there was like north, the cardinal directions, but then also things going on like northeast and southwest, and I was just like a lot of things to keep track of with them being surrounded and them moving. There was also I can't remember. Do you remember what it was like? They were on like a little island before they forded the river. It's like even that was like
it wasn't an island. They had a dugout basically. Like they were in a trench that they had dug out.
I
and there
thought that
were
he called it a something, and when I looked it up, it was like
you know, they had
basically like a
water. They
yeah.
had water surrounding them, but I don't know that it would be like an island per se. Like, because they're not surrounded. They're not surrounded by like an ocean.
No, no, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like a river island basically. At least
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
whatever he named
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's right. Yeah.
It's
It's
like a
like
weird river island.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
then they
think it's
also
like
had to like
yeah.
get down across that, but then also ford it, and then the river was
Mm,
also split. So I was like, okay, well, are they in the island between the two rivers? I just had it a little hard to follow. But here with this
mm,
one, I think I would agree that there were parts where I was like, oh, that's kind of how things went. Okay. Um, but it was just easier for me to follow. Like, they're all down in this pit. There's one ramp leading out. They're surrounded on
mm.
all sides, and I don't really care at this point who it is. I've learned from the last
Yeah.
one, like, I don't really care. I just need to know how they get out of it. And
Mm,
I thought visually the way he described the army like breathing, like lungs. I
mhm,
had a really I thought that was really well done to where I could
mhm.
understand and visualize this
Yep.
huge army like pulsing in and out. And then I loved the whole like the sappers burying themselves. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not realistic, but it was still
Yeah.
like that was pretty cool. Like because I was
Yeah.
like, why the hell? How are they gonna get out of it? Oh, and the horse thing. I love the warlocks like using the one beast to give extra power, basically like
Yep.
life siphoning
Yep.
to give the energy to
That
the
was
other
really neat.
horses was really cool. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, I would say the last one, maybe just because it was a little more confusing. I do agree. I liked it more from like that historian aspect, even though this
Mhm.
we also get from Duker, but he's on the front lines, right? Like,
Yeah. He's like stuck in the.
which why?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
like why does Duker keep ending up like why was he part of like the Navy SEAL team going in to assassinate somebody? Like I get you want a historian there, but like it just seems like time and place.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's probably not the right
I
call.
think there's a reason, and it just hasn't been revealed
Okay,
yet.
okay. That would make sense. Because right now
Yeah.
that's what I keep thinking. I'm like,
Yeah.
why is this dude
'Cause-
frontlining this army?
Yeah, because he like Duger implied in this one that Nicole Tain might have. Well, let me rephrase this. Duker did not imply, but Erickson is implying that Coltain might have ulterior reasons
Okay.
because Duker just hit the point where he's like, "Why is Coltain blinding me? Like, why is he taking away my eyes?"
I see. So yeah, maybe
Mhm.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah,
Because yeah, that's
I,
what I kept thinking of. Like, would this happen? Like I could see the argument being like, well, we want the historian to record. You know, it's like with
yeah,
press in war, they usually
yeah,
are kind of frontlining almost like to get the news and press, and they're usually safe fish. So it's like I can kind of buy it, but like yeah, like the SWAT team mission to
yeah,
assassinate a leader, I was just like, this seems weird that he's like getting hand plucked into this small crew.
yep,
But that makes a lot of sense if he has some.
yep.
Maybe he's hoping he
Now,
gets killed off so we can
yeah,
write history his
well,
way.
or he just wants him in a place where he can't really see. But yeah, he might want to get killed off. Now the thing with the assassination mission,
Mhm.
one of the important things with the lead up is like Duker was on the near verge of suicide. He had completely like stopped all duties. He had stopped
Mhm.
attending all of the meetings.
Mhm.
He had stopped checking in on people. Like he was completely checked out.
Was that just because now that you said I do remember that was just
Yeah.
because they had just come off of a pretty high win. But
Yeah,
was it
but
just
they've
like
been on the road. I mean, they're
yeah,
making
it's
a
just the defeat.
long journey. You got to remember that the last battle to now is like more months,
Yeah,
basically.
months
Right?
away, and they're getting
Yeah,
hungry and thirsty,
yeah,
and
yeah. It's just the war weariness. I mean,
yeah, which makes sense.
you're waking up, you're on the move. You're eating the same things every single day while being rationed.
Hmm.
You're spending hours every day without water, waiting for like the next opportunity.
And you're
Um,
walking into you're traveling
yeah.
towards more
you're
fights.
gonna get you're getting harassed by people like every day. You're constantly like
Mm-hmm.
adrenaline on edge.
Yeah.
So even if you're sleeping, which you're not sleeping very well, right? Like you're constantly just like adrenaline every time there's a sound or so you don't expect. Like it's extremely exhausting, right?
Yep.
And and so it's just war weariness kicking in. So there also could just be it could just be the case that he was like, this is like Coltane's like, no, just remind him what it means to be alive, kind of thing. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to believe it's that.
Yeah.
Because I like Coltane. I mean, like,
Mm.
I kind of really like Coltane right now, even though
Yeah.
he's not a character we've spent a lot of time with. It really does. He just feels like such a badass, like
Yeah.
a very competent. He just seems so competent. Like, it's
Yeah.
insane. It seems to me like Erickson has like studied,
Yep.
like what that type of warfare would be and what a leader would do and that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
My suspicion, at least right now, my guess is that the first time was to wake him up, and this time it was to make sure that he could not see the refugees.
Okay. Why do you
Because
think that?
because there was extreme because they were being used as bait.
Oh, I
And
see.
if it went
Yeah.
badly, he did
That's
not
bad for him.
want he did not want the historian to be able to see that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. That's what I think. Now it didn't go badly, and also Duker like he empathizes a lot more with the Wiccans than he does like with the grieving Malazans. To be fair, like, he understands, right, that like
Well, those refugees, like I guess maybe just the nobles, but
Yeah.
they suck.
the nobles, yeah, the nobles suck.
They suck.
But he understands too. That's like your refugees like on the march. Like it doesn't matter if you don't want your skin to be in the game. Your skin's in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I like that the one of the clans that are native to this continent have been helping Coltane, and
Yep.
they are the kind of like the so Vanguard's the front, right? They're
Yep.
the first people. What do they call the rear? Just rear guard or something?
it's rear guard. Yeah.
They're taking up the rear with the refugees, right? And
Yes,
they
exactly.
I think Duker has a moment of like, do we trust them? Like, but
Yeah.
they all like, I mean, a lot of them die protecting the refugees, which I thought was
do.
pretty notable.
Well, and that was the thing too. Is like I think as far as like Coltane is concerned, like as far as his tax is concerned, I don't think that we're supposed to view him as heartless. It is not guaranteed that the enemy forces would launch an assault on the refugees. It's not guaranteed. It is to their detriment to do that because that means that they're taking a fighting force and marching them against an unfighting force, right? Like a fighting force that's not armed, not waging conflict. A fighting, like basically, if this fighting force does not divert and assails the seventh and assails the Wiccans and they win, the refugees lose by default, right?
Yep.
So it's not guaranteed that they're going to be under attack. But if they do come under attack, then there's going to be losses. And you basically, and I think that's why, like, I think it's like the Weasel clan or
I
whatever.
think it's like
Yeah.
something like the Dead Weasel Clan or something. They have like a funny name. Maybe it is just I thought it was the something Weasel Clan.
Was it Weasel Dog or is that a different?
Yeah,
one?
maybe it's Weasel Dog or something. It's something funny.
Maybe I'm mixing a few of them. But I think that I think the important thing is that like you essentially need a fighting force that's extremely vicious and is also a fighting force that can focus on winning. Because if they lose, then the refugees all die anyway. And I think that's basically what we see, right? Is they were willing to go for like a Hail Mary tactic. It's good, like refugees are going to lose lives, they're going to take losses, but it's basically their only shot at winning. And that was to essentially draw that fighting force in and then ambush them from all sides. And that's what they did, and then they won, which means that they also not only did they lose refugees, they took heavy losses themselves, but they did save the rest of the refugees, right? Yep. And to be fair, it's not like Colton can keep a whole bunch of people back because again, if the main fighting force loses, then they all lose.
Yeah.
So,
yep. And just I love the idea of the kind of moving away from the refugees, but just still same battle. It is very dire. It felt more dire to me. Like I feel like even though I should have known maybe going in, because with the first battle, it does feel like well, what are they going to do to get out of this?
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh yeah, okay, they blow up the bridge, and it was awesome and all that. But then this seems even more dire. Like you're in a pit, and they
Yep.
have built a single way out of this pit, and it's a ramp going up, so you're gonna get tired doing it, and then at the top of that ramp is the army. Like, what are you gonna do? And they just don't even stop. They do not stop
Yep.
moving. They just go. And yeah, I don't know. I just kept being like, what are they gonna do? What are they going to do? And then the sapper part happens, and like,
Yep.
which surprised me for two reasons. One, I just didn't expect that at all, in any sense of the word. But also, I thought that they were out of munitions, but it must have only been a certain
No,
type.
they're only out of the cussers.
Okay, that's what. Yeah. So then when
Yeah.
it happened, I was like, oh, okay, they must have had just other types. But
Yeah.
I mean, I
They were
thought
just
that was
out of their
cool.
big bombs, basically.
Yeah, because they were like
crying
in
over if we got a
mourning
big
over
bomb.
it,
Yeah.
which is hilarious. But
They're
I
like,
thought
we
that was
only
cool.
have tiny grenades now. This is
Yeah, I
sad.
know. Yeah. So I guess we'll have to bury ourselves and wait. Like
Yeah.
Coltrane just knew. He's like, yeah, you guys can go there. You know, a night before. It's
Mm.
all gonna come down to you guys right at that certain
Mm.
time. Like, go for it. It's just like, dude, how do you just? Yeah, the knowing is was really cool. And it was a very cool like I don't know. Like, I don't normally have those types of moments in warfare or action when I'm reading it. Like, hell yeah. But, like, it
Yeah.
kind of was like a hell yeah moment. Like,
Yeah.
dang, that was
No.
cool.
No, I think the payoff is a lot higher in this one because you're exactly right. Like this one, it really didn't feel like the stakes were as high in the first one for sure. Because there, I think also too, there was a lot more trepidation. Like there's a lot more distance between the main, like where Duker's at, and the enemies,
Mhm.
and there's also a lot more like trepidation. Like it was communicated very clearly that like like the enemy forces are scared of.
Yeah.
Right. And whereas in this case, it's like we're actually going against Rouleau's army. We are going against like the elite of that army. We are climbing out of a pit. Yeah, the stakes were definitely higher. Like this really felt like the first time that we might see everyone get wiped out.
Yeah.
And I had a moment where I was like, I could see that, and that would be fine. You know, like if this is just where they go down, then that's what it is.
Yeah. Or at least
You know?
like a significant. I was expecting, which, you know, I guess there were significant losses, but I think I was just like, okay, I think they're probably going to get out of this, but they're going to take some very serious. They're going to have to take some serious losses, and I think in the scope of things, they didn't really take that many losses.
Mhm.
It was really just that clan, the Weasel clan, and then
Yep.
you were saying. So I guess I didn't realize maybe we confirmed we did lose some refugees.
Yes.
Okay. So, but
Yeah,
all in all, and I'm sure we lost people up front as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like no one walked out. And
Right.
general or colonel or captain or whatever the hell his name is, Lull, he got
Yeah,
messed
Lull.
up pretty bad. His like
Pretty
whole
bad.
like face is smashed in, but like I
Yeah.
love that his attitude was just like, yeah, he was just like fine with it. He's happy to be alive, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. He's like, they did knock out my teeth.
yeah, he kept all of his teeth, which
Yeah.
is great. But yeah, so I'm curious. You were chatting about what were the parts that you were having trouble buying into?
Yeah, so I'll kind of talk real quick about some of the things where I felt like it's harder to follow, and they're usually minor details. So in the first battle, there was the issue of the wounded. The language that he used with the wounded definitely could have been interpreted as either the wounded were helping to lay the bridge, or the wounded were literally being used to make the bridge.
Oh,
Because it said the bridge was made of stone and wounded.
oh,
And so it could have been implied that they were like using the wounded people as like mortar, but that would be like just doesn't quite sit right with Coltane's character, because that would be viewed as like quite brutal, because like not only would they be Wiccans, it would
that's
be
brutal.
it would be Malazans, but like the language definitely I think could have been improved there, because he definitely like takes a cart of wounded and stone.
Mm.
But it to me it would seem more like the wounded are sort of responsible for like unloading the cart, right? They're like sitting in there to like push the bricks forward
Yeah,
to help like move things along.
That's
not
kind of
that
the
like
impression I
yeah
got.
yeah not like being committed to death.
Yeah, like very
Because
still.
yeah. And then following from that again, So then for this fight, like where were the sappers buried? Like were they buried like on the hill or were they buried at the top of the hill? Like that wasn't very clear. And then also were they using the shields on their backs to, if they were buried on the hill, were they using the shields on their back to support the push up? Also, like, were they being trampled by the horses?
I think
as
they
the
were.
horses.
So, but that's why the shield's on their back. They said
Right.
they laid flat, and somehow I guess the shields they would trample on or trample or whatever the hell, gallop over the shield. That's how they didn't get squished, I guess.
Yeah.
Still seems like the pressure of like it'd still probably be pretty uncomfortable.
I mean, they are on sand.
Yeah.
But the point there being is like if the sand is so soft that it wouldn't like crush them, like to get trampled over, then there has to be something like that's not pushing them way under the dirt for the horses like not to also sink in the sand.
Yeah.
Which means like they would get crushed. So that was kind of my concern with this one was like, well, if I'm to believe, because I could kind of see them like they're trying to form like their own little road up by the shields in their backs.
Yeah.
The horse, like first of all, the people going up the hill would also be trampling them, and then you have the problem of them being able to breathe. But then when the horses go up, like they're definitely going to get trampled and killed. They don't survive that.
Which I guess at least from my remembrance, I don't know if we ever do see them after that, but I was just assuming we are supposed to take away they did live.
I think so too. The way that I interpreted it was that they were buried. The way I thought of it is they were actually buried around the fringes of the hill. Is the way that it seemed like to me. And so when then they came up, they were close enough to actually be throwing grenades into the lines. And then when the horses went up, maybe some of them got trampled, but they were actually trying to get out of the way. And then there's like the guy who's like waving his hand. Basically, he's trying to help them get over the shock factor of like seeing all the sappers all of a sudden emerging from the hill and to say like, no, go, right? Stop worrying about us. Like, stop worrying about the grenades we're throwing. Like, get in there, right? That's the way I took it. Not like, oh, please run over us.
No, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
So that's how I interpret it. But that's kind of what I meant earlier when I said that when it comes to the details, I think those are the kind of things where you just want to present it more in plain language because there's a shock factor there for the reader as well, right? Like, oh, like, you know, where these guys were buried, like how are they buried? Like, where were they buried, right? Because you just want to, for me, I would just want to know, like, are you actually trying to tell me that they got trampled by the horses or are you not? And so just kind of speaking that more in clear language. As far as some of the gripes with the battle, you know, the thing with the first battle is we're actually seeing Erickson like make use of tactics that were used in the Crusades, which I kind of mentioned, and they're using it to great effect. Part of the problem here is that we're not actually getting to see any of those tactics get re-employed, which means that we are expected that this force is going to be able to survive using a completely different set of tactics. In this case, they're using almost like a porcupine formation where they're effectively like bunching up and then defending on all sides. And that's where like the whole breathing comes out. They move out and then they come back in. The problem is essentially threefold. The first problem is that they're going up a hill. And so historically, basically the only advantage in medieval tactics that ever mattered was being uphill. Like that was significant enough to guarantee victory for virtually everybody who ever had the hill.
Gotta get the high ground.
The high ground. This is why, for example, like the Scottish defeat of the English and the English defeat of the French was so significant because they fought from beneath the hill. And the only reason those worked is because they goaded the superior force into charging down the hill into mud pits.
Okay.
And then we're able to slay them in the mud pits. They weren't it wasn't them fighting uphill.
Well, can I interrupt for 1 second? Because the porcupine part, from my understanding, that part of the army wasn't on a hill. So there was like
they're not on a hill. That's
yeah,
right.
okay. So that to me, like, it made sense. They weren't doing the whole porcupine thing like while they're also walking uphill. They were kind of on the flat flat ground.
Yep. Um, so yeah, no, but that force basically should have been halted and completely wiped out. Like if you've ever seen like the Two Towers, the movie, imagine that like the orcs that are, again, if spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen it, it's your fault. If they're the orcs that are like marching on the gate, they take heavy losses from archers on the sides because you can't shield wall the tops and the sides effectively at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they're in the same situation, slightly advantaged because I think we're meant to understand that there's quite a lip between the high ground and the wall.
Yeah.
Because they even talk about like needing to bring out short bows.
Mm-hmm.
So they really don't have like great shots on the sides. But even so, like there should be pretty significant losses as they're marching up hills just to like bowmen. But we sort of are given the impression that the bowmen aren't as effective, like the arrow storms just aren't as effective.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you are like forcing people up a hill like that, then the first thing you're going to do is just prepare massive
Be
arrow
ready.
storms.
Be more ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
especially
and you're
because
just
it
gonna-
does seem like they specifically chose that location, and Colte
Yeah.
knew they were going to choose that
Yeah.
location.
Right. Now I will say that we're not meant to just buy this like wholesale. Like we are meant to understand that the sacrifice of the horse is what gave the men the strength to actually move up the hill at a much faster rate than would be normal. So they don't slow, right?
Yep.
And nor do the horses. And we're meant to understand that the sacrifice of this like great stallion. We're also meant to understand that Rouleau is more bark than bite. He is famous in his reputation for being a sorcerer, but he's kind of a shit commander.
Yeah, and he can't really use the sorcery
And
right now so
and
much,
he
right?
ran away, right? Like he ran away at like the first sign of trouble,
Mhm.
right? So, and then the other thing is we're also meant to understand that while some of these might be elite, a lot of them are like peasants, basically, that are fighting it. So they're not a trained fighting force. So they're like we don't just have to like buy this purely on tactics.
You're talking about the on Coltane's side that they are, or are you talking about
No, on Redlow side, they're mostly peasants.
Yeah, so to me that kind of like helps me believe the whole
That's what I'm saying. Is
Oh,
we don't
okay,
have to,
I see.
We don't have to buy that we don't have to like buy this wholesale as in they can just fight up a hill and it's totally fine. It's like no, there are mitigating factors that would lead to like Rouleau not being able to like use this advantage to a full effect, right? But then the other problems are the porcupine formation. Things like that only work if you actually have a shield wall, and we're not told that they actually have a shield wall. In fact, we're told the exact opposite, that their shields actually serve a different purpose, which is to strip weaponry. And then secondly, we're told that they breathe. That is actually suicide in medieval tactics because the moment you leave the formation, you are very susceptible to being attacked. This is why, like, oftentimes in medieval forces, they would form a line, and then what would happen in the lines is that the lines would breathe out as a single line, and kind of in kind of a piston-like formation, but then constantly like moving out as a line and then coming back. Now, it might be the case that that's what like Erickson meant when he said that they were breathing, was just like were forming lines and moving out in lines like pistons. But to do it as like a full circle or nearly a full circle would be kind of crazy. Now, to be fair, like, maybe they accomplished that. Yeah,
I took it more of like just like almost like that. Right, there's the line of people walking, and just the two sides were kind of going out to like jab
and that would
at.
actually be pretty standard. But the way I thought about it was like a porcupine, because they talked about the pincer, like almost like the jaws were being shot. And that was the third problem, is like basically any army who's ever like any medieval army that's caught in a pincer is just immediately destroyed. Because like that's why that tactic is used. It's so devastating. And it also, now granted, like human psychology might work different in these kind of cases because they don't believe that they can retreat, right?
Yeah.
They do believe. They also being like magically enhanced, so we don't actually know if that affects their psychology at all. But yeah, one of the problems with like pincer movements is it basically makes everybody in the middle of the pincer freak out. And the moment that people start freaking out, they will start routing.
Mm.
And the moment you start routing, then you will take like minimum 60% losses. And so that's like the whole like jaws being shut kind of made me think it was like more like a porcupine. And if that was the case, like it's kind of hard to believe that they would be able to survive
Yeah.
against that. Now, if it's more like they held a line and like and maybe it was like an arc, and then that arc is like moving back and forth, like breathing, then then I get it, right? I
Yeah.
think that kind of makes sense, and maybe that's like what Erickson was going for, and I was just
That's kind of how
envisioning it
I was
wrong.
envisioning
Yeah,
it, more so like that. Yeah.
yeah, and that would be pretty normal, and then in which case if it's like an arc, it's going to move in back and forth. That's pretty standard. That's like basically what like gave Caesar the empire was that kind of tactic. Um, so it's yeah, it's actually there's a really cool study that looked at how Caesar's basically rise to power could be explained by the effective use of Roman tactics around human psychology, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I bet there's so much of like right that I think Coltane's army, they they know who their commander is, and
hmm
they just go in believing we're gonna win. Like we are going to win. And I feel
yeah,
like
yep,
that, especially, and then the other side, right? They've already been part of a battle that should have won,
yep,
and most times would win and have lost. And so now they're like, all right, well, we're in this position again. But I'm sure they couldn't help but think like, well, we were just in this position, and we got devastated. So,
yep.
yeah, I'm sure that goes into account.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
but all in all, I mean, I definitely still really like the battle for the stakes, and I think that the cavalry charge is really cool.
yeah,
The heavy cavalry coming out, I think that was really cool,
yeah,
and the like as far as I could tell from the description, like they basically melted the horse,
the
um,
one that they
like
like sacrificed.
sacrifice because he was talking about how he like his hands were like covered like in fat.
Yeah, it just
Um,
yeah.
oh gosh, and so it just the surprise of the king coming out of the Wiccans is really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Speaking of the heavy cavalry,
Yeah.
found it funny when they were getting their gear out, and I think Duker's like, "Wait, you guys had this?" And they're like, "He's like, why didn't you use it?" They're like, "Oh yeah, we didn't even think we needed it back then, but we're gonna
Yeah.
need it for this one." And Duker's like, "What?" Like, which I found that to be funny, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that was
So,
that's really most of and now they're just on the road again. I mean, I
yep.
can't remember if they. I think they almost confirmed in this one, like the Ubiyard is like it's not an option anymore. They're gonna go through it.
Yes,
Like
they're going to Aaron. Yep.
yeah, because I think before that was like, well, we're going to Ubiyard, and Duker's like, well,
Yep.
it's probably fallen, and they're like, well, then we're gonna
Yeah.
go to Aaron, and now it's just like, yeah, we're pretty sure it's
Yep.
fallen, so we're
Yep.
going all the way.
Yeah. We're going all the way.
But any other parts with Duker? I mean, there was like the whole like noble. I mean, fuck these noble guys. I hate them. I hate them. He writes them in such an obnoxious way, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
feel bad. The dog. So like the Wiccans have like crazy dogs, like beastly
Yeah.
dogs.
Well, in
And
the Weasel Dog clan, like they charge into the flank, and that's again a very significant piece of the battle too. Is the fact that the Weasel clan should have been knocked out because that force from the Odhan right came that way, so they're not expecting Malazan and Wiccans to come from that way, right? So they basically just like charge into the flank. The flank has to like quickly respond with like a wall, and they're immediately met with like decapitated heads just being flung into their
oh
flanks.
yeah,
And then the dogs charging
yeah,
in, right? It's just like imagine just like a bunch of hounds just like charging into a
yeah.
flank.
Oh,
Oh my
it's almost
gosh.
scarier. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I forgot, they do find some, there is a positive,
Mhm.
which at some point, I can't remember if this was before the battle, because I thought it was after they came back from the like SWAT mission, because they had dug tunnels, and
Yes.
when they were
They
in
found
there,
water.
they found water, which is
Yep.
huge, huge for them. I mean, that also, so that did happen before the battle, though,
Yep.
right? So
It did
that
happen
that
before the
also
battle,
could have
yeah.
contributed towards them like having a lot more strength than they would have. I mean, that's huge.
Yep. Yeah, because they basically had been like draining the springs, but they didn't drain the water tables, right?
Hmm.
And so they didn't think about the fact that the water tables, they probably thought like it was all dry, but in fact, no, the water tables actually weren't that deep, so they
Yeah.
could just basically dig into it.
Which I think is
Um,
interesting, right? We're finding that more and more about this. I think I talked about it in the first video how I found it cool. There was that first, it was like Erlatan or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of the city that Fiddler and them get to. But Erickson took a good amount of time to talk to us about like how the cities had been built on top of other cities that had been built on top of other cities. And
Yep.
in this part we find other underground cities and
Yeah.
like it makes me wonder, was Seven Cities, was there a time when Seven Cities was not sand at all and it's just now that way?
I mean, I feel like we're meant to see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I would imagine, which is, I mean, kind of like typical also for deserts. Like, I would imagine that it probably was like forest and water,
Mm-hmm.
and that something happened and the water dried up for the most part and created desert, and then that led to the forest dying, creating more desert, and so now we have what we have.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But this isn't the
and
first year of the I can't remember what they call it, the year of the apocalypse. It's like the
yeah,
Drizgen or something like that, right?
yeah,
This isn't the
Grisham, yeah.
first one of it. So I
I don't
wonder if
think so.
that maybe had something to do with
Yeah,
it, like a previous one that led to
I
it
think so.
being. So yeah, I found that
Yeah.
cool. Of like we kept finding like there's more underneath the sand than
Mm.
meets the eye.
Well, and like they were, they even talk about, and so, maybe this is a good time to start going into like Fellison, but they do talk about how convenient it is that the whirlwind should come during the path of during the convergence,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody remembers the last convergence nor the last whirlwind. Maybe it just always is that way,
Oh,
right?
dude, that's making me wonder. Like, I don't want to jump to
Yeah.
predictions yet, but like, I think he's made it very, very clear that Icarium is connected to time.
Yeah.
And so now I'm wondering if, like, yeah, maybe there's like some kind of like, maybe that's too far out there, but I feel like there isn't too far out there from Malazan. Some kind of like, this has happened before, and Icarium has somehow used time. Maybe he can manipulate time in some
Mhm.
way surrounding this. But sorry, I didn't mean to detract from you.
Yeah.
That just made me think like, oh yeah, maybe that is that.
Yeah. I could definitely see. I mean, Icarium's in the story for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could definitely see it. But no, I mean, I think what we're seeing with Fellison and and their journey through this old city, I think we are seeing, um, I think we are seeing the remnants of another instance where the convergent and the world, like convergence and the whirlwind coincided.
Yeah, there's so much. So I feel like it was kind of good that we talked about the battle up front because the battle somehow is the thing that is the most grounded of
Yeah.
like I can understand at least like tactics and like things like that. Then we get into the rest of what's happening and I think specifically, yeah, once with Fellison, when we're kind of getting like the history that Heberick is giving because he's almost like not possessed, but like he just has this knowledge now that he didn't have, and he's almost like speaking not in tongues, but just like you know what I'm saying? Like he has
Yeah.
this knowledge, and he's talking about like the past of these people here and how they were trying to give their children an alternative to becoming ascendants by doing a ritual that would make them like soul taken, and like I had so when I read it, I was like I think maybe I'm following it,
Mhm.
but I don't really know because
Yeah.
it's so out of like left field, especially because it's Heberick, right? It's like, well, first of all, I'm trying to be like, well, what the hell is happening with Heberick because this is new. And
Yeah.
like, speaking of things, this is one part I do wish Erickson did better, and that was like the Heberick blindness, because there
Yeah.
was like a part of me that was like, I don't think he's like, right. The whole thing is like he is blind from sand, dehydration, blah 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 blah. But like they start calling him like old blind man and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute, was Heberick blind this whole time and like he just never said? Especially
Yeah.
'cause I went back and I read the prologue and there's parts where it's like Heberick is like using his eyes and staring, But in a way, I was like, I could read like this could read like he's blind.
Yeah.
But I think
When I
he
when
just didn't
I went
describe
back
it
and looked
enough.
at this section, and like it's very clear. Like it was, I shouldn't say clear, but like it specifically says like when his eyes are sealed shut by the sand,
Hmm.
and then he says, "I'm blind,"
Yeah, yeah.
and then that's when they start referring to him as like the blind
The
man.
old blind man. Yeah, I was just like,
After he
damn,
says, "I'm blind,"
he just like
yeah,
already gets a title. Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
title is what was throwing me because like I don't know if you were like I don't know. I'm trying to give another example, but I can't think of one. I was like, I'm full now. You're like, all right, full man. You're the full man.
Yeah.
You're the big man.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, I'm just like a little bit bigger, and I'm not gonna be big forever. Like I just like, nope. You're the old blind man now.
Yep.
Um,
So yeah, so there was definitely. I mean, that was one of the parts where I had to do a double take as well. Because normally the way you'd read it would be like, his eyes are still shut, blinding him.
yeah, yeah.
Right. But because there's a few paragraphs of spacing between the sand sealed his eyes shut and him saying, "Oh, I'm blind," right?
Mhm,
And they don't notice it until he says like, "I'm blind."
mhm.
But yeah, no, it was funny. We talked about that before, and
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's cool though, because that's really when like new powers of his unlock when he's not
yes,
seeing, and not only
mhm,
with his like knowledge, but with his hands too. Like that's really when his
yeah,
hands are working,
yeah,
when he can't see. And I also found that to be a very funny scene when
mm,
like Fellison's like climbing up this what I envision to be like a tree trunk of glass shards, basically
yeah.
cutting her
Yeah, I think so.
open. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden she's like holding it to the top for dear life, and then Culp just goes whoop,
Whoop,
like
yeah,
yeah, right by him, right by her, and I found that to be to be really funny.
yeah.
Um,
I thought that was really good too.
mm-hmm.
But as far as like, yeah, so I think we should clarify, he's not, as far as I understand, he's not getting prophecy. He is essentially getting like windows into the past. Like he can get impressions
Mm-hmm.
from things around him. And it also seems to be the case that it's not coming from him either. It's
Yeah.
coming from what's happened, from the thing that's affecting him, which has only referred to now as the strangers inside him.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as he gets bitten by a deaver, he goes away. And so
Oh, we'll
I
have to talk
think,
about that because I
yeah,
think I totally
yeah, yeah, he
misrem.
loses it.
That's at the very end, right?
Yes, very end.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. It doesn't happen while they're in the temple.
No.
Okay, okay. I was like, man, I totally missed that.
Yep. Yep. So, but yeah, so I think that's part of the revelation at the end is there is actually something that's happening to him, but there's also something inside him.
Mm.
So that's causing these changes. But yeah, no. So their ultimate goal, of course, is to find water. That's why they're navigating themselves through this, this tunnel in a way. And what they find themselves is, of course, this old city, and then that comes gives us this revelation of like the cities on top of cities on top of cities kind of thing, where like they're actually underground in another city. Underground per se, they're more like in like a They're like almost like the Shadow Temple, like they're inside of a plateau.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a question because you bring that
yeah,
up. Are they under the Shadow Temple? Because Akarium and Mappo talk about the cards, the deck carved
yeah,
into the wall where they found the boat,
yep,
which was under the Shadow Temple,
yep,
and Fellison and whatever that group, they're in a temple with carvings of the deck of cards,
yep.
and then when they leave, they go down a big cliff. Like, is it just another one of the? Are there just multiple ones of those?
I think
Or
so. That's what I
yeah,
think so far.
I didn't think they were, but I was like, it just seems weird. I guess I never really understood like on the map where Pust's temple was. I know clearly it's close to Raraku because
Yeah,
they kind of just like take I don't know day trips over there. I don't really
yeah,
know.
yeah. I think the thing is though. So I mean, we should also mention that, of course, the like, we didn't mention this, but because we kind of skipped ahead a little bit, so I apologize for that. But Fellison and Bod and all of them, they were actually stuck inside of a warren.
Oh yeah, jeez.
Yeah, so maybe we should backtrack a little bit, right? So their whole goal was to get out of the warren that they were stuck in. And Culp has this crazy idea for how to make that happen, right? So he decides, while in this Eldering Warren, to peer inside of his own Warren. Um, and, well, the times we've seen this happen, a soul taken typically kind of mucks with things. And we see the same thing happen here, where all of a sudden this massive bone dragon, who's a bone caster, which we would assume therefore is a Talani Moss, and also a soul taken is a flying overhead. Doesn't even care about them, but just flying overhead. And then Culp has this crazy idea of like, well, what if I like use the like basically the force of this creature flying overhead as a way to essentially force us to glide in its wake by opening his own war and creating a vacuum that then all the water starts sucking into, creating a massive like basically force, right, dragging them towards this hole, this vacuum that they can't go inside of because their boat is too big. But it's like nearly ripping their boat apart until finally it closes and the force is still dragging their boat and they just launch like in the wake of this dragon, which is just crazy, right? And they're basically sand gliding across this now barren earth due to all the water having been sucked out, which is like absolutely insane. He like yeah, like actually like wonders for a moment, like, have I just broken a warhead? Like, is that possible?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
And then it gets crazier. That's
Yep,
it just like
yep,
it gets
yeah,
crazier.
yeah. And so then the next thing I think we're understand is that like there was some implication about the bone dragon possibly not wanting them to be following in its wake,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that it seemed to me though was that the bone dragon basically cracks open an escape for them. The problem is though that it basically does so by, or maybe in addition, like leaves fire in its wake.
Well, I thought they were
Uh,
going through like a chaos warren or something is what they, and that's where all the
oh yeah,
that's
so
where all the
yeah,
fire
oh
is and
yeah. I
stuff.
think you're right. I
Like he
think you're right.
intentionally
So
takes them through there. I think.
yes, I think you're right. And so yeah, because the part I was like, is he going to attack them? But I think it cracks open an escape for them, but then they're dragged through this bronze fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they have to abandon the boat, and the boat catches fire. The Marines
Die.
dive under. They well, we think that they die. They have an off-screen death, but they go under. They go into the boat to hide from the flames because the flames are going to go. The flames are like a wave, right? They're going to splash over the boat. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is they then catch the boat on fire. And the next problem is that happens inside of a warren, and we don't see the boat come out. So as far as we know, the boat is still burning in the warren, right? And they're stuck inside of it. But Bodden grabs Fellison. They jump off. Culp and Heberick, they jump off. And so they all jump off basically while everything's alight. But then this is kind of the next thing that's kind of important, right? Is like from Kalam's journey, we learn that when you're in a warren, you can you can choose to leave the warren, which is really interesting, and B, that by intending to go somewhere, the warren can take you there.
It's like straight
So I
up.
think
They just Dorothy it. There's
yeah,
no
and I
place
think
like
that
home.
yeah, I think that's exactly what happens. Is like their full intent is to like go home, and so they do go home. But then what's interesting is, as far as I think with all four of them, none of them should really be intending to be in Roberku,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they want to leave, but they don't really have a destination. So it kind of feels like they almost get dragged to, right?
Yeah.
Like again, like convergence,
Yeah, it makes sense where the
apocalypse,
soul
like
taken was going.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So they just get dragged to the very place that, again, I think you're right. That the soul taken's like intending,
Yeah.
and so they get dropped into Roberku. Then we kind of see this crazy thing where like Bodden is burned, but it doesn't really affect
He's
him.
bronze, baby.
He's bronze.
He's looking
and
good.
then, mhm.
He's got that leather
Heberick and
skin.
Culp shake it off. Fellison's totally protected. And then we get this awesome revelation that Bodden is not only a Talon. The Talons were essentially the arch enemies of the Claws. The Talons worked for the previous emperor, Caravan, whatever.
Kellenvad.
Kellenvad, yeah, thank you. And then the Claws worked for, I think, the Shadow Throne. They worked for Shadow Throne. And the Claws worked for Lysine. And so when Lysine took over. Or sorry, I should say the Talon's word for dancer, technically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when Dancer was out of the picture, Lysine had the claws murder all the Talons. Bodden was born to the Talons. His parents were Talons.
Yep.
And so, but he was charged with protecting Felison. Actually, he's actually her bodyguard, which I thought he was going to be connected to Heberick.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the relationship there is that he's hoping that with Heberick's help he could get Felison out of Skull Cup.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, he's actually connected to Felison, which
Hired
also
by her sister.
Yes, I think that's what we're meant to believe. They hired by her sister.
Yeah.
Which also might imply again that that also could imply that Tavor is actually masquerading.
I think it is, and that's in order to prove her loyalty to Lysine. She's like, here, take my sister, a noble. This is what I'm willing to do for the Empire, but then secretly contracts a Talon to watch over her, which I thought was awesome. Great reveal. It does make me I still hate that he's like, I hate the sex scene between them. I hate it. And I just, when I look back, I'm like, did he need to do it? He could have gone into the tent with her and then like stopped the night. I just don't. I wish there was another way, because especially where everything with Bodden goes here, I'm just like, damn it, I love Bodden, but I hate that part. I hate that part of Bodden.
Yeah, I do. I don't think it was necessary, of course. I do kind of wonder if Bodden actually really does like Felison. I know, again, like she's 15, so not great. But I do wonder that, right? Like, I wonder if Bodden is actually like.
Do we know how old Bodden is? I guess we don't, right? But I assumed older, younger than Heberick, probably, right?
I actually assume that he would be like late 20s, early 30s. Like, I assume
that's what
like
I thought. Yeah, like 30.
Yeah. So, but I mean, yeah. So it'd be essentially like twice her age. I don't think he's like an old dude like Heberick. But yeah. So, but yeah. I mean, partly I wonder like if maybe he actually is interested in Felison. Classic rom-com story, like president's daughter runs away, meets a reporter, but actually it's her bodyguard. They fall in love.
Heberick or Bodden is played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh yes. You're welcome. So,
come on, we talk about fan casting. I nailed it. We don't even need to consider it.
Oh, you guys are trying to think of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just like ripping some like old lady's head off.
Oh yeah, sawing it off with a chain.
not quite his usual role.
Yeah, just the Wahoo from Maui.
Yeah, I can understand why he didn't get that one tattooed on his body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I know it makes it very complicated, but I mean, again, I think like I don't think we're meant to see him as a like heroic character.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean he's just like character. A good guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I like him. Damn it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sorry to detract, but yeah, he comes out and he's all bronzed up for some reason.
Yeah, he's all bronze. He's got the pump going.
Yeah.
And but of course, Felison finds out now with the revelation, and basically just tells him like, you got to leave.
I know. It's like, God.
And so, which is very consistent with her character, to be fair.
Yep.
He does. At no point do I actually believe that he's gone.
No.
No. And so then they continue the march, and then that's when they kind of they get extremely thirsty. They got no food, they got no water,
and
that's kind of when they start going to this underground city. Now the city is crazy, right? Because like these people, there's still people there, and they're like statues in a way, right?
Like half reptilian.
Yeah.
In the process of transforming statues. Yeah.
And so there's like this ritual that's been conducted. But I think one of the more, we don't really get too much information other than the fact that these people seem to be very knowledgeable of Ascendance and Soultaken, more so than our characters are. But then the interesting revelation is at the end of that city when they encounter the Elder Deck. So they refer to it almost like the deck of dragons, but this is very clearly a much more powerful artifact. Like it's not a deck of cards. Like these are stones carved into the wall, or they're statues, as they are in this case. And but they, well, I would say that we maybe shouldn't assume that they serve a similar function, because as far as we know right now, the only reason why they're compared to the deck of dragons is just because they have the face of ascendants. That's
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yep.
And specifically like some of the oldest ascendants. Because there's not that many, like for example, like Shadow Throne is in the deck of dragons. He's not in, as far as we know, he's like
He's
not
not
in
in
this
the
Elder deck.
carvings. Yeah.
Yeah. But then we get this really interesting insight that, well, two things. One, there's a statue missing.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be missing.
But the throne, yeah, it's not like it's broken. It's like there is
Yeah.
a throne empty, basically.
Empty. And then Hebrick asked about Soul Taken
Mm-hmm.
before it gets cut off, which is also, again, it's strengthening this connection between Ascendants and Soul Taken.
Yeah. And well,
Yeah.
and like in the first chapter, Pust is he gives him a little more clarity of like I think when we first read the opening, you kind of had already put together that it was like I think you call it like basically a battle royale of Soul Taken Endeavors, and like the Path of the Hand is separate than the Convergence or whatever,
Yep.
which we now get some revelation on of like the Path of Hands is leading to, from what I understand, the place that Icarium and Mappa were, which was underneath the Shadow
Yes.
Temple.
Yeah. That's what I think too. Yeah.
And Puss says basically whoever gets there first becomes the god of all Soul Taken Endeavors. But like, so doesn't that connection even make it more like, are they in the same place?
Well, so the statues might be missing, but I don't know that they are, because so then the other thing is that the whirlwind is right outside. But when Icarium and Mappa left the Shadow Temple, the whirlwind was not there.
Yeah, it wasn't there at the time. But we
Yeah.
have already had some weird time not manipulation, but storytelling, with like Apt going back and with Pearl, and like we find out Pearl's the one that left the things, but like, are we safe to assume that what they drink, right? They drink the special water, that's not really water, and basically it's just going to give them immense power, is what we are led to believe. So is that the bowl? Is that the power that whoever drinks this, whatever person gets there first, this is the path of the red hand. Whoever drinks it ascends.
I mean, it could be.
Because that leads into one of my predictions, which we don't have to finish. We got a lot more to talk about, but I do want to put this out there because I think I love the way that this part ends. The whole the like book 3, Chain of Dogs. I love how it ends because it ends with right. We have two, and we'll get to why we are there. But we've got Felison and Heberic, a young girl and an old man, and then we've got Absalar and her now presumed father, Servant, a young girl and an old man, right? But then we reunite with Toblakai and the other guy, and they are waiting for the Shaikh's replacement. And a young girl and an old man come up.
Yep.
Which one is it? And my thought is it is Felison, based off of our conversation just now with like, they drank the water, gives her power. There's the deck of dragons. Puss is saying the deck is like whoever gets there first becomes, controls all the. I can't remember if he literally says they become the Shaikh, or if. But that would make sense, right? Because the Shaikh is dead now. The throne is empty.
Right.
So that's my prediction. Maybe it's not a bold one, but
so you can see my hands. You know I'm not typing, so I'm gonna just click comment, so you can see my comment. Because I typed that before. I typed this earlier.
Type comment.
Yeah, I typed on the book 3 Chain of Dogs in our notes. I had a comment typed up earlier. and
Oh,
you
you
just you
did?
just saw me. Yeah, yeah. Well, I hadn't clicked it yet because I didn't want you to see
Oh,
it.
oh, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
so I just clicked it so you
Where
can
is it?
see.
It's under
It's on
under
book
predictions.
three, Chain of Dogs. On let's see if I can on the it should be on the characters.
Oh, yeah. I see. There's a comment there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And you can say what it is because yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
have in the
So
prediction section.
I wanted to be said there. Like I typed this up
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah,
But I put Fellison is going to ascend was like one of my predictions. And it had been something that was like kind of gnawing at me for a little bit, and it just feels like that's the direction that things are going,
yeah. I
and
don't
it's
think
very, very
Absolar is
cool.
gonna do it again. I think that's definitely
Yeah.
the red herring.
Yes.
Um, but especially with like, I feel like there's parts of my brain. This is why I'm so glad we get to do the discussion because like I feel like it was there. Like I put it too. Like I got the whole like. To me, I was just taking a shot in the dark, right? Like I know there's a young girl and an old man, and there's only two of those. It's significant. We're led to believe it's Absolar, but I still was like, I think it's just going to be Fellison and Heberick because that's such a good twist. But not even putting together the whole like, well, now I'm like pretty sure it definitely is because of the what they drank the she drinks the
Yeah.
thing. They're in the place that Puss has already described. It makes sense. The throne is missing, which like I feel like my all these things are in my brain, but when we chat about it, they like unlock.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's just fun to do
Yeah.
that. But we could be
But
wrong.
yeah,
We could be very wrong.
and it could be the same location because I mean Mappo and Acarium don't go down there, so I mean it could
Wait,
be
yeah,
the
they do.
case that
They do.
no, because they see the hallway and they're like we shouldn't go further.
I thought they find the boat. Where they find the
It,
boat, there's
it,
carvings in the wall.
yeah, but it's there, but it's not the statues.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's a different location. That's the one that they like uncovered the wall, and then
Mm,
they see the claw marks, and then they
mm-hmm.
get the sense, and they talk about like what they think is down there and how they're not going to go down there because of the magic. So, but that's the place where they're like that's like the path of hands.
Well, do
So
we want to just after you finish this thought,
mm,
before we finish what happens with Fellison and them, why don't we talk about Fiddler and Mappo and Akarium and their talk with Puss and that because I think it's all coming to a head, and I think we should talk about that before we talk about what
yeah.
ends up happening with Fellison.
Yeah. So okay, so the where we left off with kind of Fiddler and them was that basically they all agreed that they needed to leave,
Mm-hmm.
and they are going to leave, but not for the reason that they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get this massive reveal that Servant is actually Absolar's father,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy.
Yeah,
And
crazy.
he has been kidnapped and basically indentured this way by Puss as leverage over Absolar.
Yep.
Because now, again, this is where I think that Puss becomes a more interesting character because for a couple of reasons, but I think he also becomes more interesting because I think he thinks he knows more than he does.
Okay.
And so I'll kind of get into this. So Puss has been like talking in riddles this entire time. And not only do you get the revelation of the servant being Absolar's dad, but now we actually understand why Puss has been talking in riddles this entire time. That he's essentially been trying to get Icarium and Mappo to effectively like reveal, like look for things that will reveal Servant's identity.
Mm.
So that way he'll be able to hold leverage over Absolar. Because there's the whole setup like brushing away the spiders, find my broom,
Mm-hmm.
oh, go find the Sheikh's body. So it's like, how convenient is it that finding Sheikh's body means finding Fiddler, Crocus, and Absolar and bringing them back to the Shadow Temple? How convenient is it that brushing away all these spiders means going deeper into the temple? How convenient is it that find my broom, the broom happens to be in the boat,
Yeah.
right? He right off the gate with Mappo and Icarium, by the way, it wasn't a line that came later. It was right off the gate, a life given for a life taken,
Mm-hmm.
which we then come to understand his intent for Absolar. So now again, Cotillion was the one who possessed Absolar. Cotillion is the assassin that works for Shadow Throne. It's
Mm-hmm.
Dancer. And so it's very likely to be the case that that Puss is like this is his scheme.
Mm.
And I personally think that this is Puss' scheme for himself. I don't
Okay.
think he's doing this on I don't think he's doing this on behalf of Shadow Throne or Cotillion. I think that they may be totally fine with what he's doing, but I don't know if I don't know if I buy the fact that they're interested in the Path of Hands. I can buy the
Mm.
fact that they may be interested in what happens with the Malazan Empire as a way to get back of Empress Lysine, and that the idea of an immortal leading a mortal empire, I can totally buy that. I don't know that he's actually interested in the Soltic and the Deers and what's going on
Hmm.
with them, but I think that Puss might be. I could see that.
Well, I feel like the way I look at it is like, because Puss is he is a priest for the Shadow Church or whatever we want to call it, who is led, or who the leader of is Shadow Throne.
Yep.
Now, Absalar was possessed. I guess does Puss? I was led to believe that Puss doesn't fully understand the possession of Absalar and who's still in there and if they can ever come back. So to me, it seems like there is a lot of interest in getting someone that was possessed by someone working directly for Shadow Throne into the position of the Shaik, because now Shadow Throne, who hates Lysine in the Malazan Empire, is now going to lead this huge rebellious army that is really right now in shambles because there's no leader.
Yep.
But if you get someone that's working directly for Shadow Throne in charge of that, now you got a force you can lead right against the Malazan Empire, which is like,
and that,
there is some interest there, I would think.
yeah, and I think that could very well be the case. It's just I keep thinking about how like Shadow Throne is all about negotiations
Mm-hmm.
and deals, and I can't help but wonder if if Puss is the one driving this right now.
Yeah, it does seem like that.
Not Shadow Throne.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's going. I think it's one of those things that's like kind of going his way. So he's like, "Well, I'm not
Yep.
going to stop it. Like, I'm
Exactly.
here
That's what
for
I
it,
think too.
but I'm not
Yeah.
behind all of this."
Yeah. And so, but I think Puss is hoping to get something out of this. I guess that's really what it comes down to is I think that Puss has something that he wants out of this.
Okay. Yeah.
He's not just doing this as a high priest of Shadow Throne because those are his orders. I think that there is some ulterior motive that he's working towards.
Okay.
And I'm curious to see what that is.
Yeah.
But this like basically reveals that yeah, Puss is not crazy. He has been weaving a web so that things would be revealed in their proper time. And then this is the proper time. So Absalar is chasing after Servant, her father, in order to, claim what remnants she can of her prior life. And so in order to prevent that, Fiddler, Crocus, Akarium, and Mappa were all chasing after Absalar. Now, this is also kind of what leads me to think again that like the Path of Hands, the Convergence, the Apocalypse, I think these things go hand in hand because it kind of feels like, because again, Akarium's also like getting more of his memories back.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like the closer that Akarium gets to the Shaik, the center of the whirlwind, like the more of his memories he gets back.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that like because it might be implied, for example, that this is a side quest, right? By going towards the Shaik, by going after Absalar, that he's like moving away from his original goal, which would presumably be along the Path of Hands. But it seems actually more so that this is aligning more with what he wants rather than the opposite.
Yeah. Which is
Yep.
having his memories and figuring out what his purpose is really.
Right.
Specifically with
So-
like the time stuff. Like he's like,
Yeah.
I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
The time,
And-
time thing.
And also, I've had a lot of things bouncing in my head. Like, could it be possible that Akarium actually was an ascendant? Like, could he have been like the king of all of the Soul Taken, or the ascendant of the Soul Taken, but like was pulled down and his memories erased?
Yeah.
And that's why like the nameless ones, that's why Mappo is here and the nameless ones, like Akarium doesn't take the throne again.
Yeah. I do have a feeling when Akarium does unlock, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Which I think, I don't know if that's I don't think that's really been hidden from us. It seems like Mappo is he's not preventing it so much as just like not helping him, which I find interesting as well. But I don't think it's going to be good, which sucks because I like Ikariam and I hope it doesn't go that way. But it does seem like. So I did have a question. So the Shaik, is that? I kind of was like under the impression that she wasn't a god, but now I'm wondering, is that person in that position like a god, or is there a difference between ascendant and god in this series? That's my first question.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that she's. I seems to me like God and ascendant are the same thing.
Okay.
I don't think that she is either, but I think that she was like, it seems to me that there's like a whirlwind goddess is the way it's implied, but that whirlwind goddess seeks a vessel in the same way that Cotillion sought.
Yep.
Apsalar. So I think the Shaik was essentially like a priestess. Who is meant to be possessed by the whirlwind, the whirlwind goddess, who's essentially like an ascendant. And so now I think there can be different. I think the term god and goddess. I do think that we are meant to understand that there are certain ascendants who are much older and much more powerful. Like the simp god isn't called in a simp ascendant.
Sounds like you're saying simp. The simp god. He's simping.
He's a simp god. He's the god of simping. That's why he had to chill on ice for so long.
Yeah.
But I like maybe there is a difference between gods and ascendants, but like ascendants have warrens, gods have warrens.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like I don't know if we're really supposed to know yet.
Yeah.
Or if we ever will. Or
if they are different, it would kind of make it feel like gods are more powerful than ascendants, but yet we're only seeing gods get killed. We're only seeing gods,
My question is though, so if we think that the Shaik is a vessel, how does that tie into our prediction of I think we're in the same line of thinking that when Felison drinks that water, she's going to ascend. But also, I feel like she is going to become the Shaik, which is almost like blending those two things, right? She is the Ascendant, and she's going to be the vessel of the Ascendant. So which is it? Because I don't know.
it could essentially be both in a way that, she's already Absalar was possessed by an ascendant, but not obliterated, which is what Cotillion had intended. So there could be a way that these two things come together. Because there's still a lot when it comes to the magic of the world. There's still a lot we don't know, right? Because like the warlocks, for example, are a constant quandary. Everything they do defies all the rules we understand. I mean, rules, quote, right? They understand. It defies everything we understand about warrens for sure. So like the whirlwind goddess might be in its own category as well. I mean, I just don't know. But yeah, no, I think, to me, at least as far as I understand, Shaik is not a goddess. It's not it's not an ascendant. But I think that they're destined for something, and I think that the whirlwind goddess is definitely involved in that.
Yeah.
It might just be the case that the Shaik is destined for ascension, and the whirlwind goddess just supports. It's just just like in the same way that you've got Shadow Throne and Cotillion.
Right? Because it does. It almost seems that way because like there is the whole the battle royale for the Soul Taken Endeavors is to get to the end of the Path of Hands so that they can become. I can't remember if they specifically said God or just like in charge, master, if you will, of all the other Soul Takens. So is this? I guess that's what I'm very curious to find out. Is that the same? From the beginning of the book, it seems like that is different than the Shaik, because the Shaik wasn't controlling the Deavers and Soul Taken, from what I understand. But it almost seems like Felison is fulfilling both of those roles. It seems like she made it to the end of the Path of the Hands, and she's going to be in charge of all the Soul Taken Endeavors. But also, she's the one that walks up to Toblakai and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Leoman.
Leoman, yeah, and is now going to become the Shaik as well. So maybe she is going to be both the Shaik and in charge of all the soul taking endeavors, which I think is really consequential. If it would have been more consequential if it was someone working for Shadow Throne. But now it's just more interesting because I can't tell. We'll get into Felison's character later of what her evolve is, but like now she's, in theory, if all of this is true, which who knows, we might start next episode and be like, "Welp, we were very wrong." But if that is true, if she's one harboring resentment against her sister, I think that's going to cause some really interesting turmoil. But just the fact that she is going to be directly against the Empire now, I think is just with all these soul-taking endeavors that she can control.
Can I throw one more little wrench in the mix?
Throw a wrench in.
It was also somewhat implied that she's pregnant.
Oh gosh, Felison?
Yeah.
With who?
Bodden's child.
Are we sure it's? I guess it would have to be Bodden because it's been months probably since she was with Bethid, or not Bethid, but whatever the hell his name was, Benneth.
Yeah.
Oh man, which makes it even more tragic. Well, sorry, I put us onto a major tangent, but really where we left Icarium and Mappo is they're getting closer. They're following Apsalar. That's really actually where we left them. They were just going after Apsalar, and Mappo and Icarium have the conversation where Icarium's like, I feel like I'm close. I feel like I'm close to my memories, essentially. And then we don't see them again. So let's there's two more things we need to chat about, really, which is let's wrap up the Felison plot. Do we want to do that first, or do we want to do the less exciting but still important plot thread of Callum in the Imperial Warren?
Well, and just
and all of that.
Well, just real quick, I just want to mention two things, just real quick, and then I'm totally ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just kind of read, and again, I could be misinterpreting like what Erickson was trying to say, but Felison basically says Culp should have known. So awesome scene. I thought that was crazy cool. Culp is watching the bear who we've met before.
Yeah.
Rip through the barrier that this strange merchant has erected, and basically inspects it and sees that the barrier keeps healing, and then turns around, and just at that moment, the merchant just becomes rats and devours Culp, which is just crazy.
That part, yeah.
So
do we want to talk about that part? Because that's really the end of the Felison plot line.
So, but I mean, I think it's just, for me, it's just, that was an amazing scene. I thought that was a great death for Culp.
Brutal.
It was brutal. It absolutely is brutal. But like, it felt like, it's just, it was captivating. It was just to see those, like, and so I just thought that was a great scene. I also, when we talked about this beforehand, I also love the fact that this is also contributing to a recurring side plots that these two characters, this merchant, who I think is not Nawal or whatever freaking name he gave us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually the character Grellin.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bear, whose name I keep forgetting, but starts with an M.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
Mesrem.
Mm-hmm.
I think they like freaking hate each other's guts. And they're just like trying to kill each other. And they've been doing it like this entire story.
Yeah.
And it's just been on the side. Like the fiddler almost gets killed because these two guys are fighting. And so, so anyway, but Mesrem's like the bear that we encountered earlier in the story twice now. So I thought that was really, really neat. But when Bodden shows up, which is the second thing, Bodden saves them from this attack from Mesrem and Grellin. I'm going to call him Grellin until it's confirmed that's
Gremlin.
Gremlin. But Bodden saves them by basically lighting himself on fire and lighting the rats on fire too, as Felison gets away with Heberick. Now, he claims that he thought he would be immune to the fire because he survived the Chaos Warren, but we come to understand that that's not true. Now,
because he's dead.
Because he's dying, right? Because he's dying. Also, though, it could be the case that he would have been had he not been fighting a Deaver, because their bite is poison.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing that makes him so resilient might have been taken away temporarily, but temporarily while he was on fire.
Was it the Otatarol that was that the reason why he turned bronze instead of burning up?
It very well could have been.
Just thought about that.
Because the Chaos Warren would have been magical fire.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like the reaction to it.
And this was regular fire. I mean, this was, fire with oil and
yeah.
Like that. But we know that the Deaver bites are poison, that we were told that. We see it's having an effect on Hebrick. It's actually causing a war inside him, as he claimed. It's taking away his powers. He's growing weaker and actually scared of dying. And Bodden is no longer at all resilient. Because before he was almost like impenetrable. Like, I mean, he's just unkillable. But now he's dead.
Yeah, which is sad. It was such a sad death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have this text where basically Fellison comments on Culp, not knowing that the guy was Deavers, and Hebrick responds. He says, "God's girl, would that I had your armor." And then when Bodden comes up and he lays his hand on her, like he lays his head on her legs, basically as she dies, he says, "You were not what I expected," and she says, it's her internal monologue, but armor can hide anything until the moment it falls away, even a child, especially a child.
Oh, so I interpret it as like she was a child who had put this armor up, and in that moment it falls away, right? But yeah, I love that it could be a second meaning of like, oh no, it's a child that they have made together, which I do think would be one great. I mean, not great because I'm like, yeah, but at least it lends more purpose to that scene that I didn't like.
Yeah. And the only reason I came around to it was just because it was interesting that there was this explicit mention of children as they were moving through the city. So
yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about we don't have too much more to talk about as far as Fellison and them getting there. Really, they go through the city, and Hebrick Ghost Hand climbs them down, and yeah, then they meet the merchant, and the rest happens. But yeah, I found Bodden's death way more emotional than I thought it would be, and it just was a huge. Maybe not. I think it was less because I was emotionally attached to Bodden, but more because I was emotionally attached to what Fellison has now, like, that it's such an unlock moment for her of like, it took this much for you to realize that it's not about putting up that front. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it took that to realize, like, seeing this man sacrifice himself for you and doing all of it. And now that you do realize it, he's gone. And it's just like, damn, man, it's sad. It's sad, but also, I think we can both be excited for next chapter. Like, not literally next chapter, but like stage 2, Fellison. Probably not in her angsty teenage years anymore. But still, who knows if she's gonna be? I don't know if she's gonna be good or bad. Honestly, she might. That might unlock an anger inside of her. Like, that might be like a, I don't know. I think it could very much go either way. And if it does go bad, it's going to be bad because she's going to be... Well, if all the things we thinking are true, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Or she could just be the person who just, like, hits the reset button. She just ascends, and then she's just like, by the way, soul-taken Deavers, and like, all you, like, Odhan, you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, she's just like, I end this now. Like, no more cycles, no more whirlwind, no more nothing, just gone. I don't know. Like,
I don't know which one I want more. I mean, for Fellison and for like Bodden and everyone, like, I want the latter. But as far as like possibility of where the story can go, if she goes like the evil route, it's gonna be interesting, I think. But But yeah, let's so we're at an hour and 40 right now. So let's try and do, I think with Callum, we can more like cliff notes it because there are some significant things that happen, and maybe we won't maybe we'll just get into it, but it is important enough that we do need to talk about it, I think, what happens with him.
Well, if you're okay with it, let me just kind of shoot us forward
Mhm.
because I think for Column, at least at this point, it's kind of only one thing that I think for me I would like to talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll just kind of shoot us forward. So they make it through the Imperial Warren.
Hmm.
They're able to escape. I think I think it's been implied that part of the reason why they couldn't escape through the Warren is because Colin was distracted.
Hmm.
I don't know how much I believe that that's actually true.
Mm.
I think it's very fitting that I think it's just very convenient that the moment that Pearl and Lestara Yill are ejected from the Warren is the moment that all of a sudden Callum can leave.
Okay.
So I think he is distracted by Manala, but I also think that having them pursue him, and him being concerned about being pursued,
Yeah.
I think is also the issue as well.
Yep. I would
But
say,
we do get
yeah, I definitely believe it was more like, I don't think it was ever like like a love thing that was distracting him. More of just like he's being pursued kind of thing.
Yep. And then he knows he's not being pursued, and then he's like, "Hold on, I think I've traveled far enough." He sees this thing that kind of reminds him of the past. He's like, I think this is time." And then he shows us he can open out of the Warren and he can leave. And they do make it to Aaron, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
We also do see this awesome scene. I do love that we do this. Erickson has this where like Pearl and Lestara Yill are like, by the way, there's a reason why I'm in the Warren. Because this is Pearl. Like, I'm not in the Warren to pursue Column. That's that's what you're doing. I'm in the Warren because I need to go to this other place to like help out, which is so fascinating. Yeah, because it shows that Empress Lucina is still rooting for Colting, which of course makes sense.
Yep.
And then he's the Claw who like kills those, and then they almost die to the Simp God. But then Apt just comes out of nowhere and just like thrashes this guy like he's the Incredible Hulk.
Apt and like his new companion, like human / demon
Cyclops
hybrid thing now, which was created by Shadow Throne.
Yes.
None other than, which is I like. This is one of those things I'm like, there's a reason, and I don't even want to go there because I just don't know. Like, why did he show up and do this?
Yeah.
I just have no clue.
Yeah. I don't know either. I mean, Apt has his own motivations. I do like to think that he was drawn to the people on the cross because of Kalam. Like, I feel like Apt, like, it feels like there's a relationship there. Like, he is drawn to, like, Kalam, that, like, he does things based on what, like, Kalam needs or moved by. I think there's, like, a type of attunement there.
Sure.
I think that he pulls the kid off because he's specifically pulling the kid off the cross, who is the kid that Kalam was like, I wish I could save him or give him a merciful death.
Yep.
But yeah, I know this Cyclops kid.
It's awesome.
It's super cool.
Like, the demon was already cool, and then I was just like, yeah, of course this is what I wanted, Steven Erickson. You knew. I didn't even know. But now that you've given it to me, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. It's so good. And I think for me, the way I look at that scene is I see it as like a reaction. I think that App jumps out because Lestara, Yill, and Pearl jumped out and that he's following them. Mm-hmm. But then there's a sort of recognition of like, that thing's got to die. Like, it's sort of a universal, like, Pearl sees it. He's like, we have to fight this thing. There is no leaving. App sees it, he's like, that thing is got to die.
Yeah. and it doesn't die though. That's what crazy is. They don't kill it. It just runs away. It's like wounded.
But I thought App like does rip out like a chunk, like a big chunk of it. Right?
It does, yeah. App does get him, but or it or whatnot, whatever. But it does not die on screen. And at this point, if I can't even trust when they do die on screen, like I'm certainly not trusting it when they run off screen and not die.
Yep. So super cool scene. And also there's one other thing to mention with Lestara, but we'll get to that in a second. But then Kalam makes it to Aaron, and we get this really interesting scene where Finally, Kalam and Manala and them, they split ways when they're at this tavern. But we did this very strange interaction between a person who's at the tavern
Mm-hmm.
and like who basically is posed as like the captain of a ship
Mm-hmm.
and Kalam. And that's kind of the thing that for me, that was kind of the one thing I want to talk about. It's just like I'm not sure that this person is actually an ally. Like it
Mm.
feels like a trap.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it feels like someone like I don't know that it's the like the red blades or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that are setting this up, but it does feel like a trap.
Hmm. Yeah,
And now
I
I
didn't even
don't.
think about that.
Yeah. Now I'm also not like I also kind of think that Kalam might think it's a trap too.
Oh yeah, he like which makes sense, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
he is ready for any
Yeah.
outcome of however this might be. But I'm curious
Yeah.
because I think one of the biggest revealing parts to Kalam, but not us, is that this captain name drops this. I wrote it down because I am like 99.9% sure we have not heard this name yet. A friend of Kalam's, Salk Elon. Salk,
Yeah.
Salk Elon. So to
Yeah.
me, I mean, like, same thing. They could just have a name and be using that knowledge to trick them.
Yep.
But I think Column like is now feeling a certain way because they know that name, which I found to be interesting. But really, he's just like, "Yep, come with me. We're gonna ship you to Unta or whatever, exactly where you want to go."
Yeah.
Which I mean, like,
Sure.
it can't. Right? There's no way this is like Deadhouse Gates ends, and it's just like, and then Kalam made it to Unta and killed the Empress. The end.
Yeah.
Like, there's no shot. So
No,
something's
well,
gonna have to
and
go wrong, right?
right, and so now this is part of the reason why I think it might be a trap or not, because then we can kind of jump over to Lestar Yill because we get two interesting revelations.
Mm-hmm.
One from Pearl that the Empress already knows about Kalam and already knows what he's trying to do,
Yep.
which is why Lestara is charged with, like we thought originally they were charged with following Kalam to go kill the Sheikh, but actually it was a double win for them because they were actually charged with finding Kalam. That's why
Mm-hmm.
they were stalking the old contact because they were hoping that Kalam would
Yep.
make
Show
contact
up.
with that individual, and then they just also get to go after the Sheikh for free. So like, wait, you're telling us the guy we're supposed to be trailing is also going to take us to the person that we would love to assassinate?
Mm-hmm.
This is great.
Yep.
But that's why Lestar has to keep going after him because he's actually the target. Um, and that's also like why they kill everybody in his wake too, because they can't take any chances that he's making contact with other possible co-conspirators,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so yeah, so now of course the crazy revelation that also comes from that is knowing that Empress Lysine knows all this stuff. Lestara Yill, who's a Red Blade, makes it to Aaron, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she gets taken into custody
Yep.
because the Red Blades are being accused of treason.
Yep. Yeah, that part I'm very curious about because
Yeah.
like I it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. They're so close
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
doing what she wants. So why would
I
she?
know.
That makes
But
no
I mean,
sense.
no, to be fair, like the Red Blades have been like some of the people have been some stirring up crap like
Yeah.
all over the seven cities. Like I mean, they
That's
do
true.
seem to be in it for themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they've been stirring up a mess. They were at ends with. I mean, they were at odds with Coltane before they went down in battle.
It's
You
weird though
know,
that
so,
Pearl doesn't know this though. I think that's what's interesting to me too. Is like why doesn't Pearl know that they? So it happened from the time that Pearl has left Lysine, whenever that was. I guess it could have been much longer than when we first find him. But
yeah, I mean, it does seem relatively recent because
Mhm.
like they haven't been executed. They've only recently been jailed.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, my
Yeah.
thinking was like sometime after Pearl left Lysine to go then
Yeah.
kill that Semp god basically. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much where we leave Lestar Yill and Callum. I did want to say one more thing. I was just checking my notes. The only thing we forgot to mention, which I think is very important, is that after Bodden and Cope die and everything, the whirlwind stops. I don't know if it's temporarily or not, but it is fully stopped at this point. At least that's what I'm led to believe, because I think Felicin even has a moment where she freaks out. She's like, "Oh no, we're in the Deaver's bubble again." But no, the whirlwind's just stopped. So I don't know what it means, but seems important and connected to her ascending or someone ascending, because that is the final scene. Is we finally see Toblakai and Leomen again, which I hope we get more of them.
I mean, I think we will.
I hope so, because I thought we were going to get more of them since the last time we saw them. I don't think we saw them at all in part 2. But I liked them. I liked the setup for them and what the characters are and everything. But yeah, so they're still chilling, waiting.
Yep.
And then young girl, old man walks up. And I think they even say, so I think the last words are, do you have the book open to the last part, or if not, I've got it right here. But basically, they say, let's see. Yeah, Leoman literally kneels down and says, "You are reborn." And then the woman's low laugh was triumphant. "So I am," she said. So literally, the rebirth has happened. And they know she is, whoever this girl is, whether it's Absalar or Felicin or neither, but probably one of the two of them. Yeah. They have been officially reborn. It's done.
Yep. I mean, she says, "But beware his hand." So that was what gave the strongest indication that it was Felicin and Hebrick.
She said what? Beware the sand?
Beware his hands.
Oh, his hands. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah. Beware the sand. They're like, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about just general likes and dislikes. We're at 150, so I think we can do this. We can hit 2 hours. We can do it. Let's talk about likes, dislikes real quick, and then we'll talk about any predictions we have, which we kind of already have. But yeah. So I'll go ahead and start if you don't mind. I love that it ends on a cliffhanger, even though now that we've kind of talked more about it, I think we kind of know, but I still like that mystery of it could be one or the other. I'm glad we saw some major character deaths, but I was sad that it was Culp and Bodden. I don't know who else I would rather it be, but I was sad for both of them. Seems like Felicin's emo teenager arc is over, and then all of the magic stuff was really, really cool. And then that's also one of my cons. I put another long, semi-hard to follow battle. I didn't put the magic thing, but I also think magic could go into there as well. Sometimes a little bit hard to confuse. It's hard to follow magic, specifically the Willy Wonka boat ride through the Warrens. I did find myself a little confused as to it's one of those that overall I know what happened. Like they got from point A, they escaped the Warren. Now they're in Rauraku, but some of what's actually happening, I'm I don't really know if I followed that. So a little confusing, but really those are my only cons. I think it was all in all a pretty good part.
Yeah. Well, and I maybe I missed something in Gardens, maybe I missed something in this one, but I have been wondering, this is just when it comes to the magic stuff, maybe it just is the case that there are these Elden Rings and they each kind of have their own style. Mm-hmm. And the magic that we see our mages use is actually really just second-hand magic. It's really that they're taking the scraps of the warrens. They're able to to draw on this fabric because there are warrens. And so they get they can maybe get kind of a particular kind of approach to something because of the personality of the warren. But they can't do the same thing that those Eldering races can do. And so maybe it is the case that the Simp have their own magic, the magic of simping. Yeah. The magic of simping. But maybe the Wiccans, again, there's an Eldering race behind them. So the Warlocks have theirs. The Bone Casters, Falling Moss, or Elderings. That we saw the Jagut were able to freeze the Simp God in ice. And so maybe they have theirs as well. And I don't know that that's true, but maybe that's why it can maybe that's why it can be a little hard to follow.
Yeah.
Because it's not a hard magic system. It's not meant to be.
No, and I was about to say, I think I'm of the mind that if we were to finish this series and I didn't understand all of the magic or why it happened, I wouldn't really care.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm the same way.
I think I'm just more of like, I wish it were just a little easier to just follow when I'm reading what's happening, not why it's happening. I don't, I don't need to know that. I'm okay with just being along for the ride. But there were certain, and it's a lot of the times it is surrounded by the magical parts where I read something and I'm like, I don't really even know what I just read. I just read like the bookends of it, essentially, of like they were here, some magical shit happened, and now they're
Yep.
here.
Yep. For me, a great example of that is in Culp's death. There's this open question of like, why couldn't Culp or Hebrick know that Nawal Grillen was a Deaver?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's okay that they don't know. Like, I don't need to understand how this whole system works that would allow him to be undetected.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes there's like things like that happen, right? That's like the part of the tragedy of life is like, maybe someone makes a mistake, maybe he's just that strong, whatever it might be, right? But like they can like because they understand magic or can use magic does not make them invincible.
Yeah.
But then he's got this whole bubble, and then like for me, like the bubble, it doesn't fall into the same bucket because the bubble is really weird because then you have a character who like explicitly is saying no, he's a liar, but he's explicitly saying like no, I'm not a mage. It's just like, well, what the hell is this bubble?
Yeah.
And again, I know there's like the life happens things, but like if you have someone who's like a liar, and then you find out he's got this bubble, like Culp goes up to him to inspect the bubble and then turns his back on him, which makes me think that like Culp, who's like the resident expert on magic,
Specifically,
right?
like illusionary magic too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what his warren is.
yeah, who sees this like if it's just like if the person says no, I'm not a mage, I just have a long history, and then you see a bubble,
Stopping all
you
the
would
sand
almost
whirlwind and stuff.
you'd be like, no, you're full of shit. Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
you bullshitted us, right? Like, so it's just like for me, like those are kind of parts where I see that I'm like, I guess it's not a magic system, but some things could be helpful in terms of like, well, what is this, or like, how is this here? It's also in the end, it's a very very minor thing, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Um,
They're also
but
like,
it's
I
just,
imagine, pretty tuckered out at this point.
oh yeah,
You
that's
know what I
true,
mean?
right?
Like, I mean, I guess I don't know because that's the thing. It's like, who drank from the water? First of all, we don't know. And I find that really interesting that we don't
We
know.
know Fallison did.
Yeah, other than Fellison. But like,
Yeah,
why
'cause she
wouldn't
confirms that.
Culp and Heberick? And Culp like wants to like eat a grape or something, like some kind of fruit that's like
Yeah,
hanging.
there was fruit that was like growing from the water, and they took lots of it actually.
But did they eat any of it?
We don't know.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, could maybe that have like temporarily? I don't know. I don't know. But it is interesting to think about. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, there's so much shit. I think we just got to roll with some of the punches and think, yeah, I don't think it takes away from Culp's death, and yeah, I agree. I think it humanizes Culp because even the best will make mistakes, and something as simple as like you got distracted by unfortunate rivalry, we think, with the bear. It just he turned around at the wrong time, and the rats saw that moment and took advantage, and
Yep.
yeah, it's crazy.
Mhm.
But any other likes or dislikes before we go to
No,
predictions?
I think I'm right on there with you in terms of likes and dislikes. I did mention I really liked the scene with Apt. I thought that was super cool. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's really anything more that I want to mention. Yeah, I remember what it was. We did get told where the chain of dogs comes from.
Oh
And I
yeah,
thought that
will
was
you remind
I
me?
thought that was a yeah. So the chain of dogs is the Malazan like slang term for Colton and his army.
Oh yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and so I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't
Um,
sound like a good
no, it's not. Yeah,
good name.
it's very much like meant to prod them.
Yeah, it's like derogatory.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. And so, but that was kind of neat. So we do now understand what the chain of dogs is. It's fun that it also comes like in the third chapter of this particular part, and it also comes like from List, I think.
Okay.
Or I can't remember if it's List or
Lister
Lowell,
lol.
but they tell Duker, and it's like also like on the verge of the like I think it's like in the fight.
Yeah,
And so, but that was kind of cool. So I like that
that's
too.
cool. Yeah. Well, all right, let's do predictions very quick. We're not going to make the 2 hours, but we're just going to be barely over it. So we did. I think we did pretty good. So I'm just gonna rapid fire my predictions, and you can do yours, and then we'll sign off here. So some of them we've already talked about. I think it's Fellison and Heberick that Leomin and Tobukai find. If Fellison does become the Shaik, then she'll be directly opposing the Empress and therefore her sister Tavor, which is going to create some fun tension. And then I've got those are like my two like I don't know, not safer bets, but the other two I've got are more out there. First of all, is Icarium I put fully unlocked Icarium can manipulate time. I don't know, but something with like resetting, past or like full resets, like major manipulation of time. And then the last one is this one I couldn't remember because I didn't want to go back. But I remember in Gardens of the Moon, Adjunct Lorne and Tool, and they're traveling to the hills to awaken a Jagut Tyrant or Jagged Tyrant. I think she's like giving Tool is giving her like the history of the Jagged and their tyrants. I think tyrants. I think there was more than one. But I'm not positive.
But none were successful.
None were
Except for
successful.
the last.
Except for the guy that they wake back up, right?
Yeah, he was the last.
Mm-hmm. But part of me thinks that Icarium is connected to one of these past Jagged Tyrants, or is one of them, or something. I don't know. That's like the way out there. I could just my memory is I didn't go look it up, so that might be way off. But I do think like there's gonna be a bad thing that happens when Icarium wakes up or whatever is fully unlocked.
Yeah.
So those are my predictions.
I keep thinking about the fact that they called Hicarium half Jagged, but they never talk about
the other half.
Why half?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really interesting. I mean, we've not seen Hicarium and Mappo actually like operate as a diva or Soul Taken, so it could be very well the case that Hicarium is actually that he's related to the Path of Hands not because of the fact that he's Soul Taken a diva. And then Mappo, of course, is related because Hicarium is related. But the Soul Taken and the Divers fear them, but more specifically Icarium.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of my prediction was that I think Icarium is related to time. I think he's related to the cycle. But I think that he was like maybe the Soul Taken ascendant and that he's been like dethroned.
Okay.
I think that Heberick or Fellison will live, but not both.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if Fellison Thanos snapped people out of existence.
Okay.
I think that would be really, really cool. I'm guessing if she does Thanos snap anyone out of existence, Grelin is going to be the first one to go.
Yeah.
And then I think also Mappo or Icarium survives, but not both.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I can see it.
I think Manala catches up with Kalam. I worry that she's going to get killed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. She clearly likes him, though. I mean,
yeah.
That was very strongly implied.
Duker's going to have sex. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Duker's going to get to have sex.
Like,
I love that, though, because that, to me, that was like a very, like, it felt very human. Of like, I'm probably going to die right now. I'm just going to say, be like, I'll see you tonight. And I'm going to, she's like, I'm going to ride you like a horse or something. I can't remember exactly.
No, she's not going to ride you till you beg.
Yeah. And Duker's just like, okay, like I got something to live for. I did love that part. That part was funny, but it did feel like it felt like very real. I bought into someone, especially because they had like already had a bit of a small little past, but it just felt like a real. People make light of situations like that, I think, and I think that's what they were doing. Bold prediction right there.
Yeah,
bold.
I know, right? Bold. You gotta go for the ambitious ones.
That's
right.
Yeah.
I don't think that we see Coltane's death, but you know, I don't know. Like I keep wondering about like List and Duker, Like,
Like, are they gonna
'cause,
make
like,
it?
yeah, they're both gonna make it because like we
I
don't
don't
know what
think
happened
Liz
to
makes
Liz.
it.
So,
Yeah, I don't think he makes it.
because the thing there is like, you remember how he's talking about how he wanted to keep the veteran, like the lady, he wanted to keep her nameless
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't want to add, like he didn't want to have to add her name to the name of the
That
Fallen.
list of names. Yeah.
But then you got List, whose name he knows, who is
Yep.
the guy who like always died. So I keep thinking about that.
Yeah. I didn't even think
And
about like when I think about the scope of this book, and like I'm like making predictions for like what's about to happen, but like what the hell is going to happen at the end of this book? Because that's what we're about to read is the end of this book of like Coltane's march will come to an end one way or another probably, and like what does that mean?
yep.
As far as like they're probably going to find Tremolor, what does that mean? Are they going to all meet up in? Is the book just going to end with them like gathering in Arin, or like what? Yeah, I feel like that's the part. Like it doesn't feel like we're going into the final part, but we are. And granted, it's twice as long as any of the other parts, so a lot's going to happen. But yeah, I just like I can't even think that far ahead. I'm just like, yeah, let me predict what we're probably going to find out in the first, I don't know, 10 pages or something. But
Yeah.
I think that's it. I guess we should say, if you're watching this, it probably is going to be a little bit longer before our final video comes out, our book 4, because it is, like I said, about twice as long as any other part in this book. And we both have a vacation somewhere in between that. So maybe 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks, maybe a month. But just it is coming. It just might take a little bit longer. But I did want to throw that out there so you're not waiting for it. But yeah, any closing thoughts before we go?
No, just that I would just again to say that I think I mentioned this before that I like Gardens of the Moon, but I just want to also clarify that for me this is still probably one of the best fantasy stories that I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
I've read quite a few, but I do love Steven Eriksson's writing style. Also for me too, like I've dreamt up my own fantasy stories that I would love to like write or to tell for like Pathfinder, D&D, Daggerheart, those kinds of things. And very much I always loved this kind of approach where you have, magic and epicness and ascendance and gods and warrens and and it just feels really really cool when like fantasy mythology and sort of almost like an alternative medieval history, like they all collide. And so I just think it's very very cool how Erickson's brought it all together. I think it shows like a brilliant imagination, and so I've just been very happy to like run into the series. And and you're talking about like you don't even know what's going to be in the book. Like this is only book 2, man. Like, so
I know.
yeah, so it's very very cool.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see to read what happens next.
Yeah, me too. I do believe that the end of this book, because it's really like the end, like last like I don't know, third of the book. Really, we've got a lot of book left. I do think this is going to land higher than Gardens for me. I think if I were to look at Gardens when I was like 66% of the way through, I wouldn't have. I wasn't feeling the. I mean, I was still loving it, but I wasn't feeling the highs and excitement that I'm feeling for this one. I don't know if that's because we're doing these chats and that I think just inherently heightens it because it's fun to like, yeah, unlock those pieces maybe I didn't think of or just chat about it. I think that makes it better. But I do think I'm liking Deadhouse more, but I was expecting it to be like, I don't know. I think maybe I just was expecting to like Gardens less. I think I'm liking Deadhouse the appropriate amount, like which is a lot. I'm really liking it. So it's not to say that Deadhouse is worse than I thought. It's just I think Gardens was better than I thought it was going to be, which is great because if that, a lot of people are like, that's the bottom floor. I'm like, all right. I mean, we got. I think like right now it's neck and neck, but that's with having all of that resolution in Gardens. We don't have like any resolution yet, and it's already neck and neck for me. Like. So I think the end's going to put it over the edge, but we will see.
Yeah.
We will see. So yeah, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and we will catch you in a couple weeks for the final part, final discussion, and then we'll probably do a joint book review, final review. Which, I think it's just going to be like 5s.
Yeah.
But so maybe our reviews won't be that exciting for this, but if you've watched it, you probably already can tell we're loving it. But yeah, we will catch you in a couple weeks. So I'm Matt, and this is
Ian.
And we are Hobby Vomit. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Thanks, guys.